Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this new Russian Circles album, Blood Year. Russian Circles are a Chicago-based post-metal and post-rock band, and to be honest, I've had a little bit of a rocky history with them, especially when it comes to their early years. Both of their Enter and Station albums, I have really nothing to say about these albums, even though I've listened to them plenty of times over the years. They were decent in part, but I feel like most of these albums just had so much filler, and there were exciting moments, but there wasn't a lot going on most of the rest of the time. There was nothing to these albums to me that was either unique or daring. But around the time of Empros, though, I actually started to really get into Russian Circles. They started touring around some really great acts around this time. I saw them a couple of times, and they actually put on really good shows. Not to mention, they kind of drifted away from the post-rock sound and embraced their post-metal sound. 2013's Memorial showed them bringing in this dramatic edge that I really liked. And their last album, Guidance, was one of their more muscular and just heavy all-around albums. But for me, I've always kind of wished that they brought those two elements together, the grittiness and heaviness of albums like Guidance, while bringing in the thematic elements of Memorial, and I always kind of really wish that would happen. Up until now, it hasn't, and to be honest, I haven't been really that wowed by these new singles. Let's chat about this new Russian Circles album. This album starts off with Hunter Moon. It's actually a pretty serene and emotional intro, even though it's short. I have to give Russian Circles credit where it's due because they do take a couple of minutes here to build up some emotion and some atmosphere, which is something that I really can't say about their first couple of albums and plenty other moments over the years. It's very cinematic, it certainly does reel you in. Some of the guitar licks in the distance are just unbelievably somber. I really do dig this as an intro. No, it's just really, at the end of the day, Russian Circles putting some more emotion into their music, and it just sounds pretty damn good. Later tracks like Milano really aren't that bad at all. I actually seriously love just how massive this track is. It is a little bit sluggish, but this is nothing but just raw power and big chord after big chord. I do sort of wish they ran with it a little bit more, maybe gave it a little bit more build-up. It's actually a pretty decent tune overall, which I don't have a lot of bad things to say about. The only thing that I do have to say is the first half, it is a very long track. The first half here is certainly a little bit on the faceless side. They do great with playing their instruments, and there's a lot of raw power here, but I couldn't tell you this is a Russian Circles song. When this one really slows down for the second half, holy hell, I'm actually mesmerized for a couple of minutes. It's just so much more of this vast, gigantic sound, and I just can't help but eat that all up. I honestly really wish it was this big and this emotional for the entire track. This would have been a knockout. The wailing guitars in the distance are great, and the drumming is just so patient. I love everything about the second half of this track. Overall, Milano is actually pretty good. And Kohokia actually shows them building up even more tension. It's tightly wound, it's slow-moving once again. Not to mention, it's very mysterious, which I personally love a lot. Now, like a lot of the rest of the tracks here, this one does take a little bit of time to pick up, but if you're familiar with the post-rock and post-metal genres, it's nothing new to you. But for me, it is a little slow at times. Look, I was raised a Deadhead, and I love acts like Sun and Godspeed You Black Emperor. I know that patience means everything sometimes, but there are a lot of times on this album where literally nothing is happening. Absolutely nothing. I digress, though, because this track is pretty freaking awesome and ends up giving me the chills by the end of it. It's just muscular drums and gigantic riffs for days. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And this album's finale, Quartered, is absolutely gigantic. Not to mention, it's one of the heaviest tracks here and really hits hard right off the bat. Now, some of the earlier tracks on here have these big, practically new metal inspired chugging guitars, which I'm gonna get to. That bugged me, but on this track, I actually think it's pretty freaking great. Mostly because, well, they're not alone. There are gigantic wailing guitars surrounding them at all sides. Not to mention some of these drums, which for the most part, the drumming work on this album is pretty freaking stellar. This one just has a great pace, it's very explosive, and while it's once again very slow moving, this one just ends up rewarding you so much. I'm so happy with that. Dare I say, this track actually gets kind of melodic at times. Not to mention, for the first time in this entire album, even though this is the finale, I find myself interested from start to finish. I mean, better late than never. Oh boy, but the other couple of tracks here are genuinely some of the most unpleasant and unflattering metal tracks I've heard all year. Our luck is just pretty rough, man, let me tell you. This production just does not sound good. I get that they want to go for a gritty sound, but this just sounds tinny and just not decent at all. And the muddy riff that just sort of barges its way in at one point really isn't that much better. Not to mention this very chugging atmosphere. It's just not what I show up for. There's certainly a lot happening on this track, but I really can't say that I enjoy any of it. I appreciate what they're trying to do on tracks like Ghost on High, but I'm just not feeling it. Winding things down here, they're taking a step back. Once again, bringing in some atmosphere. That on paper is what I want. Quite frankly, this is so boring. And I don't think that this track adds nearly as much to the album that they do. And call me crazy, but after that couple of minutes of build-up, your boy expected a little bit of, like, release and something massive and epic, but we don't get that with Sanaya. Even by Russian Circle stance, this track just seems slow. Once again, we're in this mode where, like, nothing is happening. This is so uneventful. It's just such a lumbering and honestly really clumsy sounding track. And while I haven't enjoyed some other tracks here, at least the playing on those tracks was like above the modern standard, but I don't even get this here. I mean, yeah, we started to get some big power chords over 4 minutes in, but by that point I'm half asleep. So honestly, this is a really short album from Russian Circles. They don't give themselves a lot of breathing room, and with the time that they do give themselves, I honestly, more times than not, feel like they're trying to make post-metal die than anything. There are moments here that show the band getting a little grittier, getting a little heavier, bringing in some more atmosphere. That's all fine and dandy, but other moments here just have really bad production and ideas that really take away from the album more than add to it. It's just so uninspired and so sluggish and most importantly, uneventful. I'm not feeling this album. I'm really not at all. I'm feeling like a light 6 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a good day, guys.